So obviously for sale by owners is one of the hand raisers, right? The top ones that we get into are expireds for sale by owners, geo calling, geo doors, right? Open houses, past clients, and sphere of influence and online leads. Those are the top six things that we can do to produce business. Contacts equal contracts. And for sale by owners, let me ask you a question. Raise your hand if you think or if you're better in person or better on the phone. If you think you're better in person, raise your hand. Okay, I think everybody on here is raising their hand, right? So this is a for sale by owner system that I believe works really well. I know several people that are closing a lot of transactions using this. What we're going to do is we're going to leverage our second conversation to actually be in person. So Nazar, I'm going to role play with you, if you will. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a preview appointment. So Nazar, ring ring.
Hello.
Hi, Nazar. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good, good. So, quick question. I'm a real estate agent. Quick question for you. I believe you might be trying to sell your house yourself. Is that correct? You own the house on Main Street?
Yes.
Fantastic. So, I just have one quick question for you. If a real estate agent like myself brought you a buyer and purchased your house for full price, would you pay some type of compensation to that real estate agent?
Well, I've actually heard that buyer's agents are not like that. I don't have to pay them anymore.
Okay.
Is that not true?
And you're going to get the same theory that I always have, guys. We'll try to overcome the objection. If it's too hard, we're just going to go on to the next for sale by owner, right? I'm not trying to convince anybody of it, but most of the time, Nazar, most of the time, 90% of the time, that answer is yeah. If you bring him a full price offer, I'm going to pay you a compensation. And then I'm going to ask the question, what compensation is that? And Nazar, you might say, I'm going to pay
Hmm.
2%, right? Okay, great. As a professional real estate agent, I like to stay abreast. I like to see all the houses for sale, not just the houses that are listed with real estate agents, just in case I have a buyer for your house. I already know what your house looks like. Would you happen to have some time to show me your house this afternoon?
Um, yeah, we're actually going to do an open house tomorrow if you can make that happen.
Well, actually, I can. I was just going to swing by today. Are you home right now, or would you be home later on this afternoon?
I'll be home after 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Would you mind if I stop by then?
No, no, you can
Okay.
come take a look at it.
All right. So what I'm trying to do, guys, that first step on this is all I'm trying to do is position an in-person meet, right? Because I know I can build rapport when I'm in person and I can set up the actual listing presentation. So I'm going to continue role playing with you, Nazar. So we're going to walk around the house. We ask questions, gathers rapport, right? Builds rapport, gathers information, and controls conversations. That's why we ask questions. So I'm going to be asking questions of Nazar as we walk around. But one of the questions I'm going to ask him is, Nazar, mind if I ask you a question? He's going to say, sure, right? I'll let you say sure.
Sure.
Sure. So let me ask you this. Most people that are trying to sell their house themselves have a certain amount of weeks in mind that they plan on trying to sell it themselves before they list with a real estate agent. Nazar, how many weeks were you going to try to go ahead and sell it yourself?
Well, we need to be out here by July, and so we're thinking we'll wait another month or so, and if we don't get any activity, we might hire an agent.
Yeah, so maybe 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Guys, it's so weird. Most people will answer six. It is literally so weird. People, you ask that question over and over again, it's like 80% of the time people will say 6 weeks, right? So what I've done there, this is called a framing technique. So look at the words that I've used. So Nazar, here's what most people do. NLP, here's what most people do. People are trying to sell them house themselves, have a certain amount of weeks in mind that they're going to try to sell it themselves without then list with a real estate agent. Before I said that, they're not thinking about how many weeks. Those words cause them to answer that question in how many weeks, and I can leverage that in my conversation. And now this is the first thing I have to sell. Up to this point, there's really been no selling. So, Nazar, you have a great opportunity at this point, and here's what I would suggest. During the 6 weeks, you could take the opportunity to interview some of the top producing agents to see what they're doing to sell houses, right? Maybe get some tips and go over pricing and et cetera. And at the same time, just in case if your house didn't sell, you know the real estate agent you'd like to go with. Not for a listing. I understand you don't want to list right now, but I could stop by maybe tomorrow and go over pricing with you and some of the things that I do to sell houses like yours. Would you be around 2 or 3 o'clock tomorrow?
Why don't you just, yeah, could you just tell me now?
And if he needs to do it right now, I'm going to jump right into the presentation now. That's perfectly fine with me. No problem. Right? Okay. So there's no pressure on them to meet because I've said this is not for a listing presentation, right? So let me ask you guys a question. Could you set one preview appointment a day? What do you think? Yes, one preview appointment a day? Okay. And could you leverage that preview appointment where they say 6 weeks or whatever they say? And could you then set up the actual listing appointment? Nazar, what percentage of the time do you think they would say when I say to them, here's what a lot of people do. They're going to take the opportunity to interview some of the agents and top producing agents, find out what they're doing to sell houses. And at the same time, you could pick up some tips, but also you can interview to find the agent then in case your house doesn't sell. I know it's not for a listing, but I don't mind stopping out tomorrow, said maybe 2 or 3 o'clock. What works for you? What percentage of the time do you think that they would say, sure, you can come over and share pricing with me and your thoughts? I'm not planning on listing.
Yeah, no, I'd say it's a high probability that they would be open-minded to that.
Yep. Give me a number, percentage.
Yeah, I mean, 80%, 90%.
80%. So we're going to work with 80 guys, 80% of the time. So we have one preview appointment a day. We have 80% of the time that they're going to allow us to come out the next, or like Nazard said, do it right there. Now we're going to do the presentation. So we're going to do the presentation. At the end of the presentation, the big smile on our face, we're going to say, I know you said you weren't going to plan on listing the house, but just in case you wanted me to, you were not expecting them to say yes, but we are going to do what is called a forward commitment close. So it's really easy for somebody to commit to a forward commitment close. So Nazar, let me ask you a question. Based on everything that we talked about today, I know you're going to sell the house yourself. And by the way, during that period of time, you can always consider me as your realtor. Give me a call if you have any questions. I won't charge you. If you have a buyer needs a contract or whatever. But let me ask you, if your house doesn't sell in 6 weeks, would you be comfortable with me being your real estate agent at that point?
Yeah, possibly.
Okay. I'm going to probably narrow it down a little bit more than possibly, if I could, right? I want to get, but he said possibly, that's good. What percentage of the time do you think when I ask, based on everything we talked about today, if your house doesn't sell, would you be comfortable with me being your realtor? What percent of the time, Nazar, do you think they would say yes to that?
I mean, I think it would depend on how many conversations they've had with other agents.
Could be. We're trying to get to people in the first week that come on the market. If you
Yeah.
guys have known anybody has worked for sale by owners, you understand when you call for sale by owners, they've been on the market for 3 weeks. They often say, what? I already have an agent, right? So you want to try to get with people in that first thing. So I'm just going to use for the sake of conversation, 60%. 60% of the people are going to say yes to that forward commitment. Then Nazar, week number one. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hi, Nazar. It's Dave Thompson, your realtor, calling you like I said I would. How'd your open house go?
We had a couple of groups of people come through.
Great, wonderful. Any buyers interested?
One, but they want to do seller financing, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, you probably don't want to do that. Do you need my assistance for anything?
No, I'm good for right now. Thank you, though. I appreciate you
So,
reaching out.
yeah, so last week we said that you're going to go ahead and try it for 6 weeks. This week's 5 weeks. Is that still your intentions, or did you want to move that up?
Yeah, and I'm gonna wait a little bit longer just to
Yeah,
see.
fantastic. If you need my help or anything while you're working, trying to sell it yourself, just give me a call. Next week, ring, ring.
Hello.
Same script, guys. I'm going to get to the end of the script, right? And I'm going to say last week it was 4 weeks. This week it's 3 weeks. Is that still your intentions, or did you want to move it up? Do you guys see that we do this every single week, and we even try to do it the same time, same day? We're showing them consistency. And you notice the language that I'm using on this call, guys, is I'm calling you like I said I would. Because we're always doing a little embedded commands with people. When I say calling, they said I would, they believe that I do what I say I'm going to do, right? Often, guys, they will move this up because I'm calling them every week. Yeah, I'm ready to go. But if not, then we get to the last week and I'm going to call Nazar. And I said, last week we planned on putting a house on Friday. Is that still your intentions? They say, sure. And I'm going to end up listing the house. Now, you guys, we know that according to NAR at least. 82% of the people that are for sale by owner end up doing some type of transaction with a real estate agent. So who's got a calculator? Zara, you got a calculator on your phone?
Yeah,
Okay. I'm going to go through the numbers with you guys.
go for it.
So we are going to meet one person per day. So one times 5 times 50 weeks. We're going to meet 250 people over the year, people that said we can come out and take a look at their house. Now, what percentage of the time do we think that they're going to say, sure, you can stop out tomorrow? And I think that number was 80%.
Yep,
So 250 times 0.8, I believe, is 200, right?
correct.
So
And
guys, we
then
just set 200 listing appointments from this technique. Now, 200 listing appointments, and we said 60% of the time, which I think it's going to be much higher than that, they're going to say, sure. If the house doesn't sell in 6 weeks, I don't mind you being the realtor. Yeah, you can definitely do that. So 200 times 0.6 is what?
120.
120. And we know that 82% of the people use a real estate agent that is for sale by owner, so multiply it by 0.82. And we're going to come up real close to 100 transactions. What's that number?
Um,
120 times 0.82.
98.4.
yeah.
98.4. Pretty close to 100, right? Now, tell me why those numbers don't work. Those are big numbers. That's 100 transactions. Let's
Well,
walk it through. Yeah, go ahead, Nazar. Yeah.
you're assuming that there's going to be one appointment a week available or one appointment a day available and for sub
Mhm.
owners. And, you know, in some markets in the United States, there's a ton of for sale by owners.
There is, yes.
And in some markets, not so much.
There isn't
Like
a, yeah.
in California, there's and like within a 2 hour drive, there's
Mm.
129 FSBOs.
Mhm.
And so again, I don't know if, however, we're not talking about selling 100 homes for sale by owner, right? Like even if you got 20% of that, that's still pretty dang amazing, especially since the for sale by owners that I'm looking at on Zillow right now, and this is just Zillow, it's not even people that just put for sale signs out, is 3 million, 2 million, 180, or 850,000. So the price points are pretty dang nice.
Absolutely. And the reason why you guys you want to have different, if you think of your business as like you're the head of an octopus, right? And you got 8 tentacles. You want to have a lot of tentacles. You want to have more than one lead system that you know how to work. Because there will become a time in your marketplace, if you don't have for sale banners, I would be pretty confident to say that at some point there will be for sale banners. And then sometimes we have a lot of expireds, and sometimes we don't have any expireds. So the lead system shift, I can't tell you how many people I know that just kill it with expireds, but as soon as expireds disappear, they're almost out of business because they don't know anything else. So you want to get really good at different ways of generating business, right? But yeah, so this works extremely well. If there is for sale by owners, if you do visit one person a day, right? And you get an appointment with them, coming out, asking them that question, ask them this question. Most people have a certain amount of weeks that they plan on trying to sell the house themselves before they list with a real estate agent. How many weeks were you going to try to sell it yourself, right? And then you convince them that it's worthy of you stopping out. Here's what most people do. They're going to interview some of the top producing agents out there. That way they can find out what they're doing to sell houses. And at the same time, if if your house doesn't sell and you need a good realtor, you have already interviewed and you found it couldn't hurt for me to stop out. It's not for a listing, right? You come out the next day or that day, right? Do your close, do your presentation, and then say, based on everything we talked about today, let me ask you, if your house didn't sell in that 6 weeks period of time, would you be comfortable with me being your real estate agent? And they say, yes, great. And then every week we give them a call at the same time, the same hour, right? And we say, last week was 5 weeks, this week is 4 weeks. Is that still your intentions, or did you want to move it up? Eventually they list with you, and 82% of them you get a paycheck on. That's the language. And if you do that system constantly, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can get for sale banners. I just like those words. And I like that system. I like developing systems for everything I do. That's my for sale by owner system that works. And it works very well. Questions?
I would love for us to talk about some objections that agents will get when they do call for sub
Hmm.
owners. I mean, I know that it's, it can be as easy as, yeah, sure, come on over. You
Hmm.
could also have, and again, I only speak from experience where you could have people that are a lot more reserved or are going to be, going to have some walls up. And
Yeah.
so, how do you, because, you have well, do you have a buyer for my house? That's an
No, no,
objection.
actually. And here's the answer, guys. No, I don't. The reason why I'm stopping out to your house is just take a look at your house, see what you have. So when I do have a buyer, or if I do get a buyer, I know what your house looks like. Couldn't hurt, could it? Because I'm not trying to convince them to list. I'm just kind of convincing. It's a very straightforward, honest conversation, right? The only objections are that I see really that somebody gives me often or gives somebody often. Well, all the pictures are online. So we get that one, all the pictures are online. You can look online to see what your house is worth. And I just kind of laugh and I talk about all the pictures I see all the time with the great houses that aren't great and all the pictures that are great houses that are terrible. And I've learned at this point that, I actually have to see something to see what it is, right? Couldn't hurt, could it? And I get right into the appointment. Big believer, I'm not trying to convince them of anything. And I'm actually, Nazar, I'm really what I'm doing because we talked about this before. When you prospect, you don't have to put up with it. It gives you the freedom, right? If you have enough contacts, if you have enough appointments, you have enough opportunities, you get to choose who you work with. So when I'm calling somebody as a for sale by and they're just a real jerk, I'm okay saying pass because I'm going to get on the phone call somebody else. It doesn't bother me, nor am I going to try to convince them. So it's just, if they're a jerk, I'm going to be like, okay, I don't want to deal with you. Just let me know. I don't want to deal with you because I got other calls to make and I'm going to get an appointment. Right? Make sense? Here's a little tidbit. I was reminded of this week. I'm going to go on a different subject for a second. What if every day you guys had this as an intention? I'm going to set an appointment. Now, it could be with for sale button, could be with expired, could be with a past client. Doesn't matter. But what if when you started work, your job that day was to set one appointment every single day and you had clarity in that? Is it hard to set one appointment a day? What do you guys think? Any feedback on
Mm,
that? Hard at all?
we
I mean,
don't
quite,
do it.
but you don't do it. Yeah, exactly. But you guys, if you're not with someone, if you really want to sell real estate at high levels, if you're not with someone, you should be spending all your time to get with someone. But we get caught up in all the things in real estate that take us off our schedule that really doesn't forward our business. So my job is to come in the office and to contact people until I set an appointment. And once I set an appointment, I go out and see them. If I don't have an appointment, I go right back into trying to set appointments. And that's my whole job description, right? So if we came into every day with the attitude of setting one appointment, you'd have 250 appointments a year. And if you had 250 appointments a year, what would that do for your business? Up? It would go up, right? Dramatically. And the thing is that we're just not, it's like when we talk about open houses, I mean, what is the purpose of an open house? Anybody? I think we talked about this last year. Maybe I did open houses before. Guys, what's the purpose of an open house? Anybody want to jump off?
To meet buyers.
Meet buyers. Okay. Anybody else?
Take a listing.
Get a listing. Okay. My purpose when I do an open house, guys, is this. It's to set appointments. See, whatever we have intentions is what we do. So if I'm trying to meet buyers and get leads, I'm going to get leads and meet buyers. But if I'm going to try to set appointments, I have to think, how do I set appointments? So Nazar, you guys have been looking for a house for a long time, right? I'm just role playing 3 months now. Tell me how that's going. And you're going to tell to me that, it's been a little rough and we found two houses and then we got a bid out, but there's not a lot of houses available. Would you mind me sharing with you what my clients appreciate about what I do that's different? Remember those words. What my clients appreciate about what I do that is different. Two embedded commands in there. That's a solid sentence for you guys to use. This is what my clients appreciate. They appreciate, and I'm different because do the average consumer think we're all the same? Yes, right? Okay. So this is what my clients appreciate about what I do that's different. Nazar, the thing is, when a good house comes on the market at a great price, the house will often have multiple offers on it. And if you're trying to finance it, it even makes it a little harder for you. But I spend my time calling all the neighbors and I try to find a house for my clients. I literally call everybody in this neighborhood and I'm door knocking, I mail. But here's the point, Nazar. I'm going to try to find 2 or 3 houses that are not on the market for my clients so they get to see them before anyone else. Somebody that's interested in selling that hasn't got on the market. Let me ask you a question. If I was able to find a house for you like that, would you be interested in looking at it? Now, notice I ask a question that I know the answer is going to be yes, right? I always try to answer questions that are going to be yes. So he's going to say yes to that. And I'm saying, great. Well, as you notice that there's a lot of people in this open house right now. So I don't really have time to ask questions about what your perfect house is going to be. Nazar, would you mind if I give you a call tonight around 4 or 5 so you can explain to me that perfect house? And he's going to say, sure. Cha-ching. I got myself an appointment because I was paying attention to setting appointments, right? Make sense? For sale by owner system is really, really easy. Nazar, I'm going to type that up and send it over to you, those 3 phrases, so you
Hmm.
guys have that. Cool. Guys, 5 more minutes. Anybody have any questions? Anything at all?
Who's taken a for sale by owner listing before and has sold that home? Anybody here? John, you have?
John?
You're
Nice.
muted. John, there's a
Honestly,
hundred
it's
and
been a while. It's been a while, honestly. But
there's 155 for sale by owners in the Leak City, Houston area right there. I was just looking that up. Um, and yeah, I mean and some have been on the market for a minute. And I think that if you have a for sale by owner and they've been on the market for over 30 days, those are, it's great to call them on the first week. It's also great to call them like on week 6 and be like,
Hmm.
hey, you've had your house on the market for 5 or 6 weeks. What is your plan? I mean, obviously, setting the appointment is the easiest thing. And guess what? After the second week, no one's calling them to see the house.
Hmm.
I
So if they,
currently, oh, I'm sorry.
oh,
Oh,
go ahead, Simone.
I was just gonna say I currently have a client that listed her home for sale by owner on Zillow uh last month, and it just sat. It was overpriced. It just sat, and then she reached out to me. I know her daughter, and so we've listed the home and went live yesterday. So
Hey,
she said it was too
good.
difficult. She wasn't getting anything, and her daughter said we sold her home so quickly, you know. So.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Dave, I have two quick questions.
Yeah, please.
All right, so one objection I got recently, yeah, I've got it on FSBO and I've got it on Expire too. They say to me, Mike, listen, you sound like a guy that knows what he's doing, but if I were to list, I'd have to go with my nephew who got licensed, last year or whatever. So I've gotten that one a couple times, and then here's the other one I've gotten. Um, Okay, it's not really an objection, but it's okay. So I'm looking at a house. It's probably worth, let's say, 550. They're at 600. So now I'm going to go in and try to convince them, hey, listen, I can get your house sold for you. I know, you're listed at 600. It's probably really only worth 550. But now I'm going to add my commissions on top of that. What's a good way to convince seller that, hey, I can get it sold for you at that price, but somehow factor my pay into that?
Well, they have to come to realization what the house is actually going to sell for, right? I think you said 600 and it's 550, right? So they're already 50,000 over. I think one of the mistakes that we do as real estate agents is that we present CMAs in a way that people don't understand. So let me ask you, Michael, do you think that most sellers understand a CMA?
Do most sellers understand if they're educated the right way, they see the light, they
Yeah.
understand.
Hmm. And if you present it in a way that they do understand, they're making it, they know the price, right? If I'm going to tell you the price as a real estate agent, somebody else is going to tell you a different price, I'm going to believe the highest price, right? So we have to communicate with the seller in a way that they understand the price and they're actually telling you. I'm going to do you a really, really quick scenario of something that's like a 30-minute thing. But um, so when I do the CMA, Michael, okay, I'm gonna bring out a stack. This is the way I do it. Okay, I'm gonna bring out a stack of properties because I like handing things, put things in front of people, right? And I'm say, Michael, when you purchased the house, how many houses did you take a look at?
We saw about 8 houses. We're out twice. We saw 4 on each time.
Yeah, and you actually probably saw over 200 because you've seen them online and you picked your favorite eight. And then when you went out to the favorite eight, you picked the best house at the best price, right? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So once again, I framed. That's a framing technique. Best house, best price. I want them to think that, right? Okay. So I'm gonna ask you, Michael, to kind of pretend that you're in that situation looking at a house when we're listing your house. But I have brought out some other properties. Now you have here's your old listing, Michael. You have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, blah, 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 2-car garage, 1,700 square feet. Beautiful kitchen, new, upgraded roof, right? Is that what you have? Did I miss anything? I always ask, did I miss anything? Because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything, right?
No,
Okay.
Dave, you got just about everything. Yeah, you're pretty right here.
Wonderful. So what I'm going to do is give you a map here. These are the properties that we're going to talk about. If you have any questions about any property, they're right here on that map. The reason why I do that, Michael, is because I don't want them asking me where houses are. So I give them a map. So they have the map in front of them. We're going to go through properties. And then, Michael, what I do is I'm like, okay, so you're 1,700. This one's 2,000 square feet. We're going to play a good little game of better or worse. Is this home better or worse than yours? Well, that's a better house. Well, that one sold for 850. Well, this one was only 1,400 and had a 1-car garage, and that sold for 750. So, Michael, right now between the 750 and 850, we could say your house is, in between what? You're going to say 750, 850. I want to make sure you know the game, right? And then I'm literally going to stack these things like this. This one's 830. This one's here. And when I get down to the one in the middle, I'm going to say this is it must have been built by the same builder, and this is 700. So let's look at this, Michael. The ones that are better than yours, looks like they all sold for 710 and more. The ones that are less than yours, looks like they sold for 690 and less. And here's a perfect match of 700. What do you think your house is worth?
Yeah, it's probably worth less than I'm asking.
So you came up with the price. I did not.
Mhm.
And I think that no matter how you do it, that's my technique, but we need them to come up with the price. We don't need to tell them because if they tell them, they don't believe it, right? By the way, then I always give a little joke after that, Michael. I said, that's awesome. You should be a realtor. And they laugh, really. And I don't know why, but it's a stupid joke, but they laugh at that point, Michael. And I said, it really doesn't matter what your house sells for. It just matters if you guys got enough money that you can move to Seattle, right? And you're going to say, sure. I said, so I brought out net sheets. Now, in my bag, Michael, with a little red tag, I got the 700, but I have a net sheet at 690, 680, 670, and 710, 730, 7. I have all sorts of net sheets because it's quick to do, right? And I flopped that 700, and I'm going to go through the cost now. So when I go through the cost in that net sheet, I'm going to say, this is a cost what I'm going to charge. This is what most likely another agent's going to charge. Is a title insurance, blah, 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 blah. You're going to net $250,000. Michael, does that get you to your next house?
It gives us enough for a substantial down payment, that's for sure.
Great. Then I pull the contract out and I say to you, I said, there's a highlight here. That's where we put the price in. What price do you want to list your house at?
The one you suggested, David.
700. Great. Would you mind, all right, 700? Would you mind initialing the price? Now, why did I have them initial the price?
Because that's
If you guys ever went to a closing and they don't want to sign the first document, but once they sign the first document, everything else is nice and easy. We want to get the pen moving, right? It's non-committal to get them to initial that. So I always have them initial the price on there just because it gets them in the habit. Because once they initial the price, they already have the pen in their hand, sign the contract, right? But that's the pricing presentation that I do. Whatever you do, you have to remember, they have to tell you what the price, you have to educate them. If they're not educated, they're not going to go forward. You're never going to get around that problem because they're going to listen to whatever's best, right? The thing about the nephew, right? The nephew,
Yeah.
and just say, Michael, I've been doing this for a long time. Can I share a concern that I have for you?
Yes, please do.
Please tell me first, how close are you to your nephew? Are you guys pretty close?
I see him around the holidays and then maybe once or twice over the summer. So a
Yeah.
few times a year, not that much.
And your house is one of the most valuable possessions you have, isn't it?
It's my biggest asset by far.
Your biggest asset. And typically when we're making big decisions like that, we don't make decisions based on, if they're my nephew or my next door neighbor. We make it based on the experience of the real estate agent, right? But let me just ask you this question. If your nephew, you just totally messed it up, could you fire him?
No.
And how would Christmas feel if you did?
Yeah, it would cause some problems down the road for the family, that's for sure.
We have over 4,000 realtors in town. I'd pick any one of the 4,000 before I list with a family member.
Okay.
I mean, that's how I generally handle that one. Does anyone else have a suggestion how to handle that? No? Okay. All right. So good seeing you guys. I think the next one we're going to do is on, I think it's geo business. It's past client sphere of influence. We're getting into that next. Past client sphere of influence. Good to see you guys. Have a great day.